Hey guys, in this video I'll be talking about web design tips for beginners. I think it's a crucial skill set to know to not only create effective websites, but it allows you to charge more for your services, and it will also allow you to get referral clients. We'll get straight into the details right after this. A quick thanks to EditorX for partnering with me on this video. For those who don't know about EditorX, they are my favorite web builder platform. You are able to create modern, intuitive websites extremely fast, and it comes with amazing features like marketing tools, collaboration, and a lot more. Try it for free today at editorx.com. Also, if you haven't checked out my freelancing community yet, go to freelancerxcommunity.com. I threw that in for the Americans. It's for web designers and web developers interested in freelancing, and it is completely free. This is a condensed video based on my article. I encourage you to read it with all the details on my blog at studywebdevelopment.com. If I had to go through the whole article in this video in that much detail, I would probably end up looking like this. So let's avoid that by an 80-20 approach. Here we go. In this video, I'm going to cover the website, colors, buttons, images, typography, navigation, call to actions, the web design layout, blog pages, and a conclusion. To start us off in this video, I want to start with the foundation. And I think the foundation here is crucial. That deals with how do you see a website? What are you ultimately selling here? Is it just something that every business should have, like Susan thinks? Or is it something that can grow a business, and the importance of having the right website with the right messaging, calls to actions, and marketing channels that can potentially increase business revenue, that Bob sees it, is that the correct approach? And I would want to encourage you that look at it how Bob sees it. I want you to move from the commodity market into selling a vital strategic tool that can ultimately increase business revenue, and it will take you away from the commodity market so that you can charge more for your services and that you're treated actually as an expert in what you do. Now let's go into a little more detail, starting with colors. So real quick, looking at the colors here, the green, the orange / yellow, red, blue. What business or brand is this? Got it? Great. Because if you guess Google, you would be joining about 91% of people who said the same thing. Now the point of this is I'm going to go through a few colors and give some perspectives. And I want to highlight here that certain colors make certain elements stand out. And ultimately, colors influence how people feel about your website. If you are interested on this topic, just Google something like color psychology, and it goes into a lot of detail. But in this video, I'm just going to give you a few nuggets on a few important colors. All right, let's start with the color red. Red portrays urgency, passion, emergency, survival, courage, aggressiveness, but its shades can have slightly different meanings. Bright red generally means energetic, exciting, beverage or entertainment, something to do with adventure companies. So in this case, on the left hand side, I've got an example of a digital marketing agency. It's bold, it's powerful, it grabs your attention. On the right hand side, I've got dark red, and this portrays authoritative or luxurious. It's good for companies selling high price services and products such as educational institutions, and in this case, a law firm. Moving on to blue. If you want to create a sense of trust or safety or calmness, blue is a great color to have. It gives almost like a feeling of serenity and peace, but also trust. So if you are in doubt, consider blue, as it is a safe color. And if you look at, let's say, the Fortune 500 companies in the world, notice that most of their logos or websites have some shades of blue, particularly if you break it down into sectors like banking, finance, insurance companies, tech companies, medical or healthcare institutions. It's pretty interesting, right? So in the case of the left-hand side, we've got light blue. This instills creativity and tranquility. It's great for tech and travel companies. Dark blue, on the other hand, generally incites intelligence, trust. It's great for companies that need to build trust, like financial institutions, healthcare, government, and other industries that I mentioned earlier. Green generally deals with something that's like natural or healthy or growing nature, calmness in a way, but it's a very neutral and versatile color. You'll very often find green in businesses or organizations, like health and wellness is really a big one, nutrition, organic. Also, if you look at money and some tech companies as well. In this case, we've got Evernote on the left-hand side and Jamba Juice on the right-hand side. Yellow is considered to be the happiest color. It makes you feel excited and optimistic. So companies that want to evoke like cheerful feelings would often use yellow as it comes across friendly and delightful. It's also great for differentiating brands such as MailChimp. They changed their branding recently, so it makes them appear as like creative, sort of out of the box types. If you want to convey a sense of urgency in a non-intrusive way, orange may definitely be the right choice. Orange is a great color to draw attention. You'll often find orange in businesses or organizations like outdoors, activity, sports, food, marketing, logistics, and especially dealing with, in this case, like Remington uses it a lot to appeal to the male demographic, but also it doesn't only appeal to, let's say, the male demographic. If you look at NP Digital, Neil Patel's marketing agency, you'll see that the very subtle orange just pops and just makes the call to action look lovely on that black background. Moving on to black. It's considered a luxury color which appeals to the luxury market. So if you have a client selling high-end products or services such as luxury goods, cosmetics, fashion, butler service, or anything like that, black is a great color to consider. Just as a slight bonus, if you add gold or gray or white to black in a website, it looks super classy. It's pretty interesting if you look at luxury brands like Prada, Zara, Chanel, Hermes, Cartier, Patek Philippe, Burberry, and so on and so on. It's amazing how they actually use black. I've been fascinated about black websites and what it portrays. I really like the classiness and exclusivity of what it portrays. The color white. So when in doubt, use white. It's basically a fuss-free, simple, classy, sophisticated color, and it highlights strong colors if you have like a call to action and sort of that very minimalist, clean vibe that makes it easy to read, non-fluffy, to the point. I really like Basecamp on the left hand side, this example, and we're all familiar with Apple on the right hand side. Let's move on to a web design problem I see a lot with so many web designers, freelancers, whatever, and that is contrast. It's amazing how many people still need to understand this because it makes a big difference on the websites that you create. On the left hand side, do not create colors which have poor contrast. Rather use, let's say, the Adobe Color Wheel, complementary colors. You can just Google Adobe Color Wheel. It's free and it's an amazing resource. So let's say, for example, you are using yellow in some colors. A contrasting color might be like blue or purple. If you are using, let's say, green, the contrasting color might be, let's say, red, and it just makes it pop. It's great for the call to actions as well. So please consider contrast when you create websites and use these colors accordingly. Let's talk about buttons. So buttons are a crucial part in interacting with a website. I think what we don't want is people to view a website and actually wonder or second guess if this is a button, right? So a button needs to be clickable, it needs to be visible, and it needs to guide you to the next step. So what I've done here is I've presented 4 ways. Generally, obviously there's many ways, but in my mind, this is sort of the 80-20 approach on designing effective buttons. So you've got rectangular on the left hand side, you've got rounded on the right hand side, and this is sort of the flat style. And then you've got shadow, then you've got inset, which is like almost like a little, I think the best way to describe it is like a miniature or a little bit of a shadow inside at the bottom, and then another shadow. I think this is pretty cool. And the outline. Generally, try and add a shadow to a button. Generally speaking, at least people know that it is a button. I know the flat buttons are pretty cool and I still sometimes use it, but as long as it's noticeable that it is a button. Taking this one step further, you generally get 2 types of buttons, and that is a primary and a secondary button. A primary button is basically the main button. It's the desired call to action you'd like the website visitor to take. The secondary button is the second most important button. So if the primary button is the main call to action, let's say it's focused on making a purchase, the secondary button is more like a low risk action, like let's say a free trial or a free sample or schedule a demo, something that doesn't require, let's say, a monetary investment at first. I think a lot of web designers neglect the secondary button as a call to action, and I think it's a crucial thing that you're missing out on. So in this case, if we look on the right hand side, that is an example from 1Password. They use a primary and secondary button, which I think is great. The only thing I would suggest for them is the color of the Get Started button. In this case, I would prefer contrasting color, like let's say yellow or red, to make it pop a little bit more. Let's talk about images. I think images are a crucial element to sort of bring a website to life in a way. And one important thing I want to mention is don't use low quality images. If a client provides you with low quality images, rather do not use it if they cannot get better quality images. There are great resources, premium resources that you could consider, like let's say Deposit Photos or Shutterstock and various others. Just make sure that you use quality images. The second point is, what type of message do you want images to portray? I'm going to go through a few examples shortly, but before I do, I want to talk about compression. Very briefly, what this means is basically making the size of your image smaller, so it takes less time to load. You could use a CDN such as Cloudflare, or use a tool like TinyPNG, but lately I've been using Optimage.app. That is a premium resource, but I found it to be really good. Nothing is worse than seeing text over a background image and you cannot even read what it says. This also includes mobile, so don't forget about that. I think so many web designers, developers make this rookie mistake. So there are so many ways that you could find a solution to this. I've just listed two, which I think look pretty cool, but I mean, you could make it darker, lighter, whatever. So in this case, what I did was I added an opacity to the background image of the same color, let's say as the color theme or scheme, which I think also looks cool. And then underneath there, you've got like a white one, or you could make it darker. But the bottom line is you want to make sure that you can see the text on the image. I think it's really important when dealing with images to be intentional, to use the right images. So in this case, on the left hand side, we've got a hero image banner of the ideal business target audience. I think it's great, and look again from the previous example, you can clearly see the text. I think it's really a good image. And then on the right hand side, we've got Dropbox as an example using icons. Icons are a great way to visually summarize key points or any workflows, features or something. So I really do recommend this. You can use Noun Project or even EditorX has some amazing resources on this. Just as a quick side note, I really love this example, so I wanted to include it. And this I would call, let's say, eye gaze images. Just shows you how you can use the right image and get different results. Just changing the image, that's it. So in this case, a study was done where it shows eye gaze looking at words or the call to action, and it boosts engagement and click-through rate. So in this case, the right-hand example on the right-hand side was more effective than the left-hand side. Pretty interesting. Let's move on to typography. Typography, simply defined, is basically your font, your headlines, and your text. So I think the best way to summarize it in one word, think of it as a way of communication. So what type of message do you want to portray to your website visitor? So let's look at these examples that we have here. On the top left, we've got luxury genuine leather handbags. In this case, the bottom is a better font. On the top right, we've got the perfect cakes for your celebration. In this case, the bottom is not the correct one. The top one just looks much better and is more relating to that feeling that you want to portray about cakes for celebration. The bottom one sort of deals with almost like a medieval sort of cake celebration. And then right at the bottom in red, you'll always be mine. You tell me, what do you think of that? Dealing with headings and subheadings, almost like primary and secondary buttons, I think are extremely crucial. And again, a lot of web designers and freelancers miss out on this opportunity. The point of the headings and the subheadings is that someone should be able to really understand what a business is selling, whether it's a product or a service, from their heading and their subheading. That's it. The images help, everything else helps, but they should understand clearly what the business does from the heading and the subheading. So keep it simple. In this case, I like the example of Netflix, unlimited films, TV programs, and more. Look at the subheading. Watch anywhere, cancel any time. Love it. It's great. On the right hand side, we've got an example of a marketing agency, Smile Marketing. Custom, high converting dental websites in digital marketing. Clear. Boom. Done. Look at the subheading. We turn website visitors into new patients. Boom. And again, look at the examples of the call to actions. Fantastic. The website navigation. Now again, there are many ways that you can create navigation. I wanted to go 80-20 style and just do almost like a web convention. I know there's some cool modern ways, but let's just focus on these three for now. So if you are in doubt, if you are confused, go with the winning nav bars. To this day, I still do a lot of websites with this navigation. It works, people are used to it, they know what to expect. Just as a side note, what you can do, and I've seen a lot of people do this incorrectly, your navbar categories are extremely valuable real estate. So if you've got, let's say, 10 categories, your home, your about, and various other non-important categories, take it away. Only focus on your key categories. Rather put what you can in the footer. You don't need to have an about in the header. And one other bonus, remove the word home. By now, it's common knowledge that people click on the logo, so remove that. That's valuable real estate that you can use to clean up the navbar and put what is important there. Call to actions. A CTA or call to action is basically a button that you want the website visitor to take. For example, buy now, try a free trial, call me back, and so on. A quick story. This is actually what really got me interested in doing web design. When I was about 17 years old, I heard about this story called the $1 Million Button. And it was essentially one change to a website, the button. So on the checkout page, a word was changed from register to continue, and it resulted in an additional $300 million in revenue. Who was this company, you ask? Amazon. So if you're interested, just Google the $1 Million Button. It's a fascinating case study. I know this sounds a bit crazy, but it's just an example of how important the right call to action can be. And I think it's also important to keep testing the position, the size, the color, different text of different call to actions for your clients so that you can find the sweet spot. In these examples, I've got Editor X, start creating. I think it looks awesome. Perhaps maybe it's worth looking at changing the color to make it pop even more. On the right hand side, we've got Ahrefs, sign up for Ahrefs and look at the contrast in color. Lovely. Bottom left, we've got Basecamp. And one other awesome tip is to add text underneath the call to action. Look at Basecamp. And on the bottom right, we've got my call to action for my freelancing bundle. And I've also got some qualifying text underneath the button. All right, now let's put what we've learned to use. Let's talk about the web design layout. So I know it can be overwhelming for a lot of people when they first design their website. I was one of them. And I know there's amazing, awesome modern things that you could do, but the reality is it's overwhelming for a lot of people. That's why I wanted to focus on beginners in this video. So in this case, I want you to think of a web design layout starting from the top as your header or logo navigation. Then we've got a banner, services or features, some content, some credibility, call to action, and a footer. On the right hand side is just a brief overview example. So what helped me a lot and still helps me to this very day is when laying out a website, when thinking of a website, think of it as rectangles. I know to a lot of people who are professionals and everything, it sounds like, oh, don't make it that simple and there's a lot of cool things you can do, but especially for beginners, it's perfectly fine. Think of it as rectangles. So what I usually do, even today, I always start with the navbar section right at the top and the footer. And then what I do is I fill in the middle section later. And what I'm going to show you in the next slide is sort of different things that you could consider to put in the middle. And the awesome thing is this applies to almost every single page that you're dealing with in a website. So in this case, you might have like a banner at the back, maybe some headline, call to action, again, maybe like a cool image, headline, text, call to action, and then on the top right, maybe an icon, some features, and then underneath that, we've got like a headline and a video, call to action. Next, again, some text, call to action, maybe some reviews for some credibility, accreditations, or featured in, or maybe some partners with some logos, and maybe you want to promote something, a blog or courses or something important, different services page. This is a good layout on the top right hand side. And then maybe your call to action. Maybe you've got a newsletter, maybe you've got a contact form or something. Obviously, there's a lot more we can add here and talk about, but I think this is very much an 80-20 approach. And the main takeaway I want you to take away from this is don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple and you'll be perfectly fine in creating your first 5 or 10 websites, and you can work on the fancier animations and all of that type of stuff as you go. I just want to finish off on blog pages. I think it's incredibly beneficial for clients and for yourself even to have a blog. It's a great way to show your expertise, and it's also good for SEO. So something to consider when you create a blog for yourself or your client is generally 2 layouts. We've got the center and we've got the left with sidebar. Generally, I prefer the center. I think it's clean. I think it's simple. I think it's, just keeps things very simple, and it's easy to read, especially with today. There's a lot of fluff and ads and distractions and everything. A few pointers just to mention: try and keep the width narrow. It's easier to read when it's narrow. For example, if you go to my blog, you'll see, an example of that. Very important, obviously, write good content. If you are not very good with writing, consider outsourcing. I'll do some videos on outsourcing in the future, but that's just something that you can consider. Again, as I mentioned, it's SEO focused. It's great for ranking on Google. It builds credibility. And again, maybe as a double whammy, it builds credibility. That's actually a bug, but I'm calling that a feature. And finally, use a CMS. So for example, Editor X. Currently, my website, studydevelopment.com, is actually coded. I'm actually in the process of making it on Editor X, an awesome CMS. All right, that's the end of this video content. I hope you found value from it. Just a reminder that the full content and full details of this article content is on my blog, studywebdevelopment.com. If you type in something like web design tips for beginners on Google, I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. And then if you are a freelance web designer or developer interested in freelancing, or you have an existing agency, join my free freelancing community. Go to freelancerxcommunity.com. I'll be making a video about it in the future. And that's it for now. I'll hopefully check you guys in the next video.